someone there.
Okay. It's
Okay.
I'll tell you. Right
All right.
now.
We'll find out in a moment. That's
All
it.
right, great. All right. Good morning, everyone. We'll call the EMCC meeting to order. Welcome, everyone, and we'll start out with introductions. I'm the chair, Tino Ariano, AMR Operations, and I'll have folks that are guests can introduce themselves as an option, but we'll start to my right for introductions.
Teresa Rios, EMS Director.
Deborah Hopkins, EMS analyst.
Kimberly Hernandez, EMS Analyst.
Sam Clemick, Salinas Fire Department, representing County Chiefs ALS.
John Burley, EMS Medical Director.
Steve Brooks, CMS agency staff.
Kevin Haggy, Fort Lake Fire.
Scott Hopkins, Salinas Fire.
And we can go to our folks from the internet online.
Yeah, it's Paul Wood, City of Greenfield, representing city managers.
Welcome.
Gary
Nick
Malayo,
Greenson.
yes.
Nick Greenson, emergency physician representing Salinas Valley.
Jim Langboard, City of Greenfield, and representing County Fire Chiefs BLS.
Good morning, Carla Spencer, SVMH, representing Hospital Administration.
Keith Boyd,
Good
PD,
morning.
representing the police chiefs for the county.
And Susan Bletch from County Council's office.
Joe Kafar with the Hospital Council.
Good morning,
Roxanne
CAL FIRE
Superset
EMS, Roger
Agency.
Reinhardt, CAL FIRE EMS.
Sorry, Roxanne Superset EMS Agency.
Michelle Kalinsky Chomp.
Dave Craddock, Monterey County Regional Fire.
Roger Reinhardt, CAL FIRE EMS.
Ben Hitchcock, AMRCES.
Will Hiller, AMRCS.
I think we got everyone and we'll.
Is Harry Robbins on?
I see Jeff's
That's,
on. There it
that's
is.
his number down at the bottom. That's right.
Okay. Thank you. We'll mark Harry as present.
His phone is on.
His phone's on at least.
Okay, I think we got anyone left to do introductions that didn't get a chance to.
There he is.
All right,
Thank you.
Somebody.
is that Harry?
Karina.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he's raising his hand.
Yeah. Need to unmute.
Harry, you need to unmute.
He's from his phone. He pressed do star what? Star 4. Star 6. Star 6.
If your phone does, if you're using a cell phone, it may have an unmute button, but if it's your landline phone, Harry, I'm Harry star 6 might unmute you.
There it is. Oh, no,
I timed out.
okay. Well, thank you for the introductions. Let me start out with public comment. So any member of the public may address the committee for a period not to exceed 3 minutes on any issue not on the committee's agenda. The EMCC will listen to all communications, but may not take any action. Do we have anyone from the public that would like to address the committee? Seeing none, we can move to item 3. Approval of past EMCC minutes for September 8th, 2021. Do we have any corrections or anything you guys saw in the minutes you guys would like to correct?
Move approval.
I just have one correction though on the minutes. I think for in the membership, we have Tino Nieto instead of Tina Nieto.
Oh,
Yeah.
what correction?
Yeah.
Spelling.
Just spelling correction.
Yeah.
So
Move
I-
for approval.
Okay, I have approval for the minutes by Sam Clemic. Do I have a second?
This is Carly, second.
All right, so Carla, second.
All right, roll call for approval. Gino Ariano.
Aye.
Sam Clemic. Carla Spencer.
Aye.
Jim Lineborg.
Aye.
Harry Robbins, if you can't speak, feel free to raise your hand. All right, we'll see if something comes up there. Paul Wood,
Aye.
Dr. Greenson,
Aye.
Keith Boyd.
Aye.
Great. Any members that I missed? All right, thank you. It carries.
Yeah, motion carries. All right, great. So Steve, in the sake of time, you mentioned Susan Blitch, County Council, move her to prior to giving reports so she can
Sure.
speak.
So-
maybe for the-
So what we're looking to do is under new business, item 7C, it's a report on AB 361 requirements from Susan Blitch. In consideration of her time in the county council's office, we would like to move her item up to this point, and then we'll continue on the agenda as done, as published.
Thank you very much, and I'll be short because a lot of you have heard this before. Under AB 361, which recently went into effect, in order for this body to continue meeting remotely, a decision needs to be made to set the next meeting within 30 days, at which time you would reconsider the requirements to continue to meet remotely under AB 361. Essentially, the statute allows continued remote meetings as long as the governor's emergency order concerning the pandemic remains in effect. But Brown Act bodies have to reconsider the public safety reasons for meeting remotely every 30 minutes. And what that essentially means that this body would have to have a special meeting every 30 days to continue to meet remotely. Logistically, it can be a very, very short special meeting, but we do need a quorum and we would need approval of the factors to continue meeting remotely. So it presents a little bit of a logistical issue, but it is doable as long as we have a quorum in favor of that. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Seeing none, what I would propose is a motion by someone, if they do want to continue to meet remotely, that this a special meeting take place in the next 30 days and leave the timing to the chair, at which point the AB 361 item will be up for consideration to allow continued remote meetings.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Do we have a motion on the floor to conduct a special meeting to continue remote forum? Did I say that right, Steve?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, we're looking for a motion to meet within 30 days to discuss whether the requirements are for having this special type of meeting remotely as opposed to what's approved under the Brown Act, that we still will meet those requirements and have a meeting in 30 days.
So moved. Paul,
Seconded by Keith.
Second that motion.
Keith.
Okay, roll call vote. Tino Ariano,
Aye.
Carla Spencer,
Aye.
Sam Clemic,
Aye.
Jim Landborg,
Aye.
Harry Robbins. I don't see the hand, but we'll hold that. Paul Wood,
aye.
Dr. Nicholas Greenson,
Aye.
and Keith Boyd.
Aye.
Thank you. Any other members that I missed? Great, thank you. It carries.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Well, we'll return back to now item number 4 for reports. MAC Advisory Committee. Deborah, highlights on the MAC Committee.
A copy of the meeting minutes from the last MAC meeting are attached to your agenda packets, as well as a CQI tag written report. As far as an update goes, the STEMI and stroke groups, quality improvement groups, both met in September. The trauma and CQI tag meetings have been postponed until December. That is in order to facilitate discussion of the policies and procedures that recently went out for public comment. We'll have those comments back at that point and be able to go over those with the groups. Otherwise, we have successfully, after a long battle, established consistent access to Trauma One, which will give us access to trauma registry data. So we're very excited about that and the possibility of providing some follow-up information to not only our field providers, but some of the non-trauma centers as well. We also were able to successfully get the contract for the cardiac arrest registry to enhance survival approved by the Board of Supervisors last week. So that will give us access to patient outcome data for our cardiac arrest patients. Most of our hospitals and EMS agencies are already participating in that, so it should not be a big increased workload for any of our facilities or providers. We are also continuing to move forward with the stroke and STEMI data access through American Heart Association and their Get With The Guidelines program. That'll give us access to follow-up information for those sets of patients. It'll also remove some burden from the hospitals to provide that information through separate processes. Our very own Dr. Burley is hosting a continuing education class coming up next week on the 16th. That'll be from 1 to 2:30. It's free. You can register online, and any providers will get 1.5 hours of CE credit for that. We're looking to make that a regular process and put out a survey for feedback on continuing education in general and particular topics of interest to the EMS community. So information on both of those is available on our website. I think that's about all the updates I have.
All right. Thank you, Deborah, for a thorough report. We appreciate it. And we look forward for the CE class. I think everyone's excited for that, at least from our division. Next item is Operations Committee. We did not meet, or at least was not met last month or the month prior, but there is a meeting today, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll move on to item C now on reports for EMS agency updates. Teresa.
Thank you. At the September meeting, the EMS agency reported that we were anticipating having the amendment to the current ambulance agreement approved by the board October, November. Unfortunately, we did not meet that deadline. We are working to finalize and get it to the board as soon as possible. We are currently working to fill 2 of the 3 vacant positions remaining in EMS. We have ongoing recruitments for the management analyst 3 and 1 EMS analyst position. We continue to work on our policy and protocol development cycle. We are right now in the middle of the 2022 policy protocol development and have been working on incorporating whatever changes we can incorporate right now that would lead to some improvements. For the 2023 cycle is when I think everybody can expect to see major improvements in the process. One of the things is that we're going to extend the time that we for the whole process, including the internal process. So our review will start earlier so that we can put out, better product to be reviewed during public comment and allow more opportunities for stakeholder input during that process and do more of the work before we actually bring those items to the MAP committee. So that continues to happen. Last time we also reported that we are revamping our unusual occurrence report case review. We met with our stakeholders, got feedback. We have created new tools. The intent is to streamline the process, to reach a resolution as promptly as possible. And that item is on today's agenda in the Ops Committee for discussion, and hopefully we can roll that out no later than January. We also reported last time that we are revamping the EMT paramedic application process. We have been using Excel to track applications, and we're trying to do this electronically so that applications are submitted online. We can review them online. We can have more communication, more real-time communication with the applicants. And we have explored some software. We're close to making a decision moving forward and hopefully implementing as soon as possible. It would be nice to get that early in January, February to see that implemented. That's the extent of my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, don't see any questions. Thank you, Teresa, for the report. We'll move over to the Mohawk activities.
There's a written report for the Mohawk attached to your agenda packet as well. To hit a couple of the highlights, the COVID data that is in there, we've actually seen a little bit of an increase in the numbers since that point. Slight increases in the test positivity and case rates. And then we also saw a spike in our hospitalizations over the past weekend as well. On the vaccination front, the big news is that the 5 to 11-year-olds have started to be vaccinated. That means because of adding that population, which is approximately 40,000 residents in the county that fall into that age group, to the denominator of our calculations there, the vaccination rates have actually gone down a little bit, but that's a good sign as we're starting to make more people eligible for the vaccines. Also on the COVID front, we had our request for an extension of our local optional scope of practice related to COVID testing and vaccine administration extended through September 30th of 2024. So our EMS providers will be able to continue providing both of those services. We're also continuing to process supply requests and work through monoclonal antibody ordering for the county as well. That's the highlights there.
Any questions for Deborah? All right, Deborah, thank you very much. Again, solid. Thank you for that update. We'll move over to item 5 for EMS system performance matrix. Start out with the communication testing with Kimberly, 800 and the ReadyNet systems.
Okay, good morning. So the 800 megahertz and the ReadyNet testing were included in your packets. The EMS agency has started reporting the 800 megahertz and the ReadyNet results to all the hospitals monthly to identify trends on their end and also receive any feedback on anything that could have affected their compliance for the month prior. Previously, they were seeing these results at the same time at the committee. So we're trying to get ahead of it so that if there is any problems, we can identify it quicker. CHOMP did, their percentages were low for their 800 megahertz and ReadyNet in both months. CHOMP communicated that compliance was down in August due to construction happening in the ER near the EMS computer and the 800 megahertz radio. And then in September, they also shared that they discovered they were having intermittent issues with their 800 megahertz radio and are working on resolving the problem. So reporting to the hospital has been beneficial because they can give us feedback to find out what's going on so those things can get corrected. Any questions? You can go on to the ReadyNet. It's in their packet as well.
I got one question on the 800 megahertz. Have the clinics been integrated yet into testing as well?
No.
Are they still part of getting them into the?
So
testing?
from what I've heard from when I've talked to John Greathouse, because he does the hospital preparedness, he said everyone is set up to do it, but it's getting them to actually do it.
Do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's been the problem, but we have the hospitals on.
Okay.
That's all you needed? Yeah, that's fine. Any questions?
Okay. Thank you, Kimberly.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to speak about ReadyNet or?
Oh, I covered ReadyNet and 800 megahertz at the same time. Because it was in their packet.
Okay, we'll go over to contract compliance working group.
Okay. Okay, so for contract compliance, just waiting for the PowerPoint to come up. Hold on just one moment. Okay, you can go to the next slide, Karina. Thank you. Okay, so for response time compliance for priority or by priority, priority 1 for August and September was 88%. All other priorities exceeded 90% compliance. Go to the next one. And for response time compliance, green, priority 1 for August was at 89%, and in September it was 87. All other priorities were that were reportable met or exceeded 90% compliance. And priority 5 was not reported in August, and in September, priority 6 was not reported due to the 100 call rule. And for response time compliance, yellow, in August, priorities 2 and 3 exceeded 90% compliance. Priorities 1, 4, 5, and 6 were not reported as they had not met the 100 call rule for the month. And in September, priorities 1, 2, 3, and 4 exceeded 90% compliance. Priorities 5 and 6 were not reported as they had not met the 100 call rule for the month. And then in orange, priority 1 for August was 88%. And priority 2 and 3 exceeded 90% compliance. And for September, only priority 2 was reportable, which was at 98%. And then in EMS dispatch performance, as usual, I mean, you can see through the whole since September of 2020, dispatch performance continues to be well below the 59-second standard. So the dispatchers are great at processing all priority calls. And then for MPDS performance, in August, 68% of calls were EMD'd, and in September, 70% of calls were EMD'd, which is great. Also, it should be noted that the number of calls aborted went down in July and has stayed at 4% since. And the report shows the number of calls getting aborted decreases. And so what that shows us is that the number of calls getting aborted decreases, but then the number of calls that are getting EMD'd increases. So they're finishing out some of those calls before help arrives. And so they're able to get through those calls faster and get them so they're not aborted before help arrives. And that is it for compliance. Any questions?
Thank you, Kimberly, for the report. We'll move over to
Priority 1 drill down.
pardon?
Priority 1 drill down.
Oh, priority 1 drill down.
Just if you were Roxanne.
No, that's me.
Oh, you're
Priority 1 drill down?
Yeah.
That's me.
Okay.
Okay, so you can go to the next slide, Karina. Oh, there, that one's fine, thank you. So priority 1 drill down process, all the priority 1 late calls are extracted by month from AMR's First Watch online compliance utility. Each call is then looked up in the County Communications Tri-Tech Computer Aided Dispatch, or the CAD, to verify the location the unit was responding from. Any delays noted in the CAD notes, possible shoot time delays, cancellation reason, and or transport code. And after analysis, determination on the following was found: the counted percentage of all priority 1 late calls per zone, counted percentage of calls in each overage interval, counted percentage of transport and cancellation reasons, and analysis on the code 3 returns to determine the overage interval those specific calls fell into. So for August had 36 priority 1 late calls. 24 or 67% were in the green zone, 10 accounting for 28% were in the yellow zone, and 2, which 6% were in the orange zone. In the late intervals, 13 accounting for 36% calls were 0 to 1 minute late, 12, which was 33%, calls were 1 to 3 minutes late, and 8% were 3 to 5 minutes late, and 8, which accounted for 22% of the calls, were 5+ minutes late. And 1 of the calls was an auto aid or mutual aid call, which accounted for 3%. As I've been doing this, distance, meaning the unit was not at the optimal post, indicating that lower system levels was the largest single factor at 64% when analyzing when units were late. So this is pretty much every month. These calls are happening. The reason why they're late is because the system is busy at the time that the call comes down. For the August priority 1 late calls, the transport and cancellation. So 72% of these calls were transported code 2. 6% were transported code 3. I'm sorry, 6%. 6 calls, which accounting for 17%, were transported code 3. And the remaining 4, which were 12% of the calls, were canceled on scene for various reasons, canceled on scene or AMA. And an analysis on the code 3 returns. So 2 of the code 3 returns were 0 to 1 minute late, 2 were 1 to 3 minutes late, 1 was 3 to 5 minutes late, and 1 was 5 minutes plus late. And then for September had 28 priority 1 late calls, 75% were in the green zone, 7% were in the yellow zone, and 18% were in the orange zone. And in the late intervals, 25% were 0 to 1 minute late, 29% were 1 to 3 minutes late, 29% were 3 to 5 minutes late, and 18 were 5 minutes plus late. And 4 calls were auto aid and mutual aid, accounting for 15% of the total priority 1 late. And again, it's almost the same percentage. About 65% was the largest single factor of distance, that the unit was not at the optimal post when the call came down. And then for the transport and cancellation for September, 39% of the calls transported code 2 and 21% transported code 3. And the remaining 40%, which is larger than most months, 40% of those calls were canceled. So it was canceled en route, on scene, AMA, or those were the cancellations. And then for the analysis on the code 3 returns, 1 call was 0 to 1 minute late, 1 was 1 to 3 minutes late, 3 were 3 to 5 minutes late, and 1 call was 5 minutes plus late. Any questions?
Do we know how many of these calls were in ALS fire districts?
No, I have not analyzed that part yet.
All right. Any other questions for Kimberly for the priority 1 drill down?
Yeah, I would just have one, is that in this report where you classify system was at drawdown for those late calls, is there any other data to go with that would be able to give us a snapshot of what the system status was at the time?
I would have to, it would just be more manual data digging. So currently what I do is I look up each call in the CAT, right, and look at where they were coming from. Then we would have to get a screenshot of each call to look at what the system levels were at the time. So I haven't dug that deep.
Or at least the concurrent calls in the system would be helpful, just to put the data in context.
Right, and it's kind of this, it's the same. So because when I do compliance, I look at like system screenshots to see what's happening exactly in the system at the moment. So the way I look at it right now is I know where, according to where post they were at, I think we talked about it last time, that I can tell that they were at lower, because depending on the system status, if they were lower, if the unit was at a certain post, that means that they were not at their, that the system levels were lower. So I could look at a screenshot for each call. It would just be more manual digging, because this is all manually done.
I understand. I understand how that formula works. And just to see what the reason for the system status at that point was, would be add some more context to what that means. Yes, it's to really see, is it concurrent?
No,
calls?
I totally understand. I'm just saying it would just be like another step, another manual step. Yeah.
Yeah, I think some of the late reasons we have is from other units committed to other priorities, hospital delays. one I did here over the weekend was crew waiting to give a report to the doctor, which creates more delays of us waiting for the physician. So that unit's less available. SUMH had some stacking issues over the weekend as well because some other IT stuff went down. So those things create more delays for us. So we try to navigate through that. We definitely are pushing our crews, but we definitely have to be cognizant of the demand that we pose on them as well. So I think our dispatchers do an awesome job in coordinating and managing them, but at the same time, we've sometimes fall short of getting a unit there within a reasonable time, just based upon the system demands as well. And again, we do a lot of out-of-town transfers too. The other day, we had 3 units out of county.
And to my point, and that's exactly what I'm looking for, is putting some context to those things, because right now it's just, it's numbers with lacking a little bit of context, just for me to wrap my head around. And I'm sorry, I'm the new guy in the committee, so.
And so am I, and that's one of the issues. We had actually submitted through the link through the county's site for an issue, a complaint. We had a situation where the nearest ambulance being sent to a medical emergency in King City was coming from Prunedale.
Right.
Due to a number of factors. But the South County ambulance was at Natividad with patients. There was a collision in Soledad that due to an incident, and sorry, my phone was ringing there. What happened was we had a medical emergency, and like I said, the ambulance was coming from Prunedale. And I have a structural concern with coming from other counties. There's a fill and flow that occurs when an area is unserviced. I'm used to ambulances being moved to ensure an equitable process. To everybody's regulated times are good. In this situation, we were in a position we were going to be putting this patient in a patrol car to drive him to the nearest hospital because the 60-minute ETA could compromise that person's survivability. Fortunately, it balanced out, and that was not needed, because once we were on scene, the facts did not support what was the initial claim. And I have a significant concern with that, because it's not just about our law enforcement officers or our firefighters. We all talk about that, but I have members of my community that, who, when they have a medical crisis, we need to know that we're in a position to provide for their health. And when we have ambulances that are 45, 60 minutes away, there seems like there should be a system in place. And if there's not, or if this was a breakdown, where we have a transfer of apparatus around to ensure everybody is met. Because even if Greenfield had an incident, if Soledad had an incident, if Gonzales had an incident, we're still looking at 30+ minutes for any of our cities before we had an ambulance on scene to transport a patient. So just putting it out there. We did submit the paperwork through to have it reviewed. And I definitely would like to get a clear understanding as to how it happened in time for all the police chiefs and for our local cities in South County.
We received the report, Chief, and it's being looked into. So we will close the loop with you as soon as possible.
Hey, quick question for AMR. How's your guys' staffing going recently? Like, what percentage of days are you going into the day with a full set of ambulances?
It varies. There's times where we are full staff entering, and we have call outs throughout the day. So we try to reach a 370 hours of unit hours. So AMR is a producer of unit hours, not a producer of calls. So what we try to do is try to hit that target. We average about 362 hours a day that we produce of ambulance unit hours. The Sunday, we actually produce 380. So again, it varies. Sometimes we're doing really good on some days, but some of these hours are taken away from, system hour robbers, meaning we now are taking these away because of delays at the hospitals and delays at scenes for, restock or something like that, which is very minimal. But at times, all those things have an impact on the system itself.
Right, but if you're saying your hours are below your goal, it sounds like most days you're going into the day understaffed. Would that be fair to say?
No, we are not going in the day understaffed. We are actually staffing at at about the average, which is about 360 to 370, depending on how the day progresses. Again, if we had out of county transfers, then that takes away hours from our system. Just recently, we went to Bakersfield, Sacramento. Today, we're going to a Sacramento ALS units getting pulled to go to all the way to Sacramento for a 5150. So things like that take away those unit hours. So we try to backfill.
And I do appreciate the unit hours and such, you know, and I speak from experience in the sense of, you know, a jurisdiction where I worked in the past, we had multiple paramedic authorities or medical authorities. And so there were different, let's say, districts of the county, and they were independent providers that had an ambulance service. But when one provider was maybe down, like say AMR in South County, another ambulance provider shifted resources to support the EMS system. And because whether it's AMR servicing South County or somebody else servicing North County, whatever it might be, it's an EMS system that its success relies on all of us working together because it's our communities. And so that's my thing is somewhere in our system, we have to also have something that's built in. So when the system is deficient in one area, an area of the system that is maybe running more efficiently can transfer and support. And I've looked through the policies, I've looked for information. I've yet to find a written document that shows like a support system in place for transfer through, in essence, mutual aid, mutual assistance, however we want to call it, that ensures that resources are distributed when one area is down resources.
No, actually, Chief Boyd, you make an excellent point, because I think that's where priority dispatch comes into play. Because once these calls are prioritized, we're able to send the most appropriate unit to that call, to that priority. Plus our ALS first responders add to the system, because then they can start starting treatment and lower the call to a lower priority if needed. So things are in place to help us. We are a limited resource throughout the county, but we're actually relying on our partners to assist in.
No, and I agree, priority, and that's where when we talk about that priority aspect, that's where my concern comes in, because I'm very confident that there was an available ambulance somewhere between Prunedale and King City that would have been closer for what was dispatched as an initial immediate medical emergency of a kid. You know, in my opinion, an ambulance should be coming from Salinas. You know, some ambulance should be deployed to provide the fastest emergency service to that constituent, to that community member. And that's time is life. We all know that time is life. When it comes to heart muscle, time is life. When it comes to anything, time is life. And so, you know, I come with a background. I have a wife in medicine, so I'm very passionate. And I oversaw a coroner's office for 5 years. I dealt with death, a lot of death for 5 years. And time is life. And if we don't take steps to ensure time is minimized, we're potentially creating opportunities where the system fails the residents.
Hi, this is Sandra, the communications manager. I actually looked into the call that you're talking about when I was working on compliance, and I did look at the overall snapshot of the system, and I saw that there were about 4 calls in South County, one of which there was a call on 101 on Front Street. So there was an ambulance en route to that. And so the dispatcher already had 3 ambulances that they were working down South County. And so initially there was one coming from Prunedale that they were working to Salinas to start sending units down South County. There were no units even available on the peninsula. So they were working all their ambulances to work South County. In dispatch, one of our biggest concerns is South County. Just so you're aware, my biggest thing is post Prunedale to Barondo 101 and start some in South County. So our dispatchers are very aggressive when it comes to South County.
My issue isn't with dispatch. My issue is with we were told on the radio, and I listened to the radio because I was involved in it, because I'm the one that told my staff member to put the patient in the car and take him to the hospital. The knowledge we had, what we were dispatched over the radio, is ambulance coming from Prunedale. It was said over the radio. And then about 10, 15 minutes later, there was a transfer. Okay, there's an ambulance coming from like the Chular area. And I get resource calls come. I completely get that. But somewhere it seems on the EMS structure, there was a miss. That's all I'm saying. That's where I want to focus. Not
Chief,
to, yeah.
Yeah, if I may, I think we're looking at this particular scenario, situation, as an unusual occurrence. We're doing the case review. We don't know at this point. I think if it is a single case, then we need to take a look at it and see what happened, and if there's something is identified as needing to be addressed, then we will address it. That is different than if we have a system issue where the ambulance are not being hosted appropriately, and we don't see those issues happening all the time. But we need to go through the process of the case review. So if you just bear with us for a little bit, Kimberly is working on the UO that you reported. Let us go through the process. We would also like to maybe schedule a meeting with you, and that way, and invite AMR, and maybe go over that system status plan and in that process of posting the ambulances and how mutual aid is requested. It's something that will provide additional information to you, Chief. And that way, but I think that we need to go through the process of looking at this case, looking at what happened there. And then if it's a single case, then it is a single case. Or if there's a system issue, then we would have to address it.
Agreed.
Teresa,
One of the things I did ask for to be sent out to all the fire and stuff was, can we get the plan that covers this so we can review it? So when we have that meeting later, we've been educated a bit on the process. I think it'll make the process go smoother when we do the back end review. I've asked for that. I'd like to see it if it's available so I can get it out to the chiefs as well to get their feedback, because it's a countywide issue, not just a King City issue.
Let me get back to you after this meeting.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Michelle has her hand up, I see.
Oh, thanks. This is such an important topic. I'm really glad you guys are taking this on in this way. But I would want to say something to Tino and AMR, and that is, the data that isn't being reported on interfacility transfers, both from the ED and in-house, have a profound impact on our ability to offload your patients. So when I am told that I have to wait 8 hours to move a patient to Stanford that's a critical kid or critical OB, it makes a difference. And psych obviously has the hugest impact because there's literally 10 to 12 people a day sitting in my department for 40 plus hours, sometimes waiting 10 plus hours to get their transfer crew available. And I think as we recognize that this is becoming an incredibly big issue within the county, we're gonna need to dedicate resources, however we choose to do that, whether it's an alternate mode of transportation or what we choose to do, so that we can get these beds opened up for you, improve your offload times, and get your crews back on the road. It's an important data point that you guys aren't reporting because of numbers.
Thank you, Michelle. You are right. We do have a lot of issues trying to meet everyone's demand, especially the hospitals, when it comes to out-of-county transfers. I think we have started a BLS unit when we have it available. It gets pulled into the system to support the ALS side. But we definitely shoot and target to get that filled daily. And again, we provide overtime pay, mandation pay for these folks to come in. And depending on staffing for other parts of our ALS system, that takes away from those folks. But we definitely target to have that BLS unit available to support the long distance transports, or call people in from off duty to come in and do these transfers to those further hospitals.
I also think there's a lot of ALS transports that are taking a longer amount of time to move out of the department and outside of our usual standards.
Right. And I think those are things that we are looking at, and we are looking at changing some start times for our field units to hopefully capture the majority of those high demand transfers that we get. It's always changing because we do have folks that call out, or we get folks that are exposed to COVID and they may be out for a couple of days. Numerous operational things that we have to navigate through daily to make sure that we have an ambulance available for everyone, not just for the hospitals or for the PDs, the fire departments, but also for those out of county requests for mutual aid as well. So we're always looking at providing the service as best as we can.
If I could just speak for a second, Jim Langborg, BLS, and City of Greenfield, South County. I'd like to speak a little bit to what Keith Boyd had to say and just some other things that I brought up in the past. It's my understanding that collecting response data for the South County area isn't possible, and that's why it's done system-wide for the yellow. I think every portion of the county has different needs, and if it's not possible, it's not possible. But I certainly think that this is a good example of why we should be looking at what's going on in this portion of the county to see if it's different. And just operationally, I would think that AMR would want to know that so that they can make adjustments as needed. The other thing I'd like to bring up, and I have brought this up, and I know that the Fire Chiefs Association has brought this up, and we made this recommendation for the contract, and that is the ability to create partnerships with either AMR, with other fire departments or something like that, with the goal of creating additional and alternative transport resources that can be put into the system during times of need, during extreme situations like what was experienced in King City, disasters, MCIs, etc. And I just want to throw that out there again, that it's done throughout the nation, it's done successfully, and it's all intended to improve service to the systems that fire departments and other EMS providers serve. I realize it's not the end all be all, it won't cure everything. There's always going to be situations, but I would highly recommend to everybody that if there is something that we could do to improve our system, I think we should strongly consider doing it. That's all I have to say. I'll be quiet. Thank you.
Robbins was trying to speak earlier.
Harry Robbins, he had his hand raised earlier if he wanted to speak up.
Tino, can you hear me?
Yep. Go ahead, sir.
Fantastic. I've had some difficulty with this system and unmuting it, but I understand what the chiefs are saying, and I think that a couple of comments. First of all, the existing contract specifies that there be no underserved areas. And one of the areas that we have looked at very closely on the contract compliance working group are the South County cities. We have seen some instances in there, primarily driven by the prisons, where the system has been overtasked. And I won't go into the gory details of why that's occurring, but the system has been overtasked by circumstances beyond the county's control in some instances. But let me assure you that we look at that in the contract compliance working group, and you're certainly welcome to attend those meetings to ask specific questions and express your concerns in that venue as well. It's a working venue, and we like to get to the problems before the problems occur. And looking in for underserved areas is one of the things that we've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years. Additionally, this is for Teresa primarily, but I think that the incident, the King City incident, which there was a question of responses nearby that can respond in a reasonable period of time. We should look at that as a standalone incident and look at what the situation is. I think the contract compliance working group is something that should be brought before that body at its next meeting in December.
We can call it a standalone, but I can pull the data to show it's not a rarity. Okay, I can pull data where we have situations where ambulances have been in North County and South County has been underserved. I mean, my staff routinely tell me about it. I haven't pulled a lot of the data, but I can start pulling it if it's helpful. And it's something we're starting to track now, more so because of this one incident. It's become something we are going to focus on and start tracking to be able to submit, because it is happening. And, you know, we are farthest away from, you know, we're all the way at the end. We have a volunteer fire department and they do a great job, but it does take them time to get together. So when the ambulance is out of the area, which is a dedicated full-time staffed resource, it does compound our system issues in the southernmost city of the county. We'll track the time, and I know we want to look at it as a standalone, but I think we have to look at it as more of a general system issue. It's not necessarily a standalone.
Okay, I agree with you. I agree with you on that. I think that we will continue to look very closely at the 4 South County cities and the responses down there. But if you have specific trends or specific information, please let us know, because we can focus more deeply on South County. That's been very high on our priorities. One of our predecessors on the board, Howard Wolgamott, that was one of his key ideas, concerns rather, and as mine as well. So I also am concerned about North County and the things that have occurred up there. So those areas are the type that could be underserved, and we want to avoid that. I won't go into any more detail on that, but if you've got specific information, let us have it, please.
So I think that we're saying the same thing. We're gonna look at this UO that was reported to us. We will work on seeing whether there is a system issue and address it. But we would like to follow up with Chief Boyd to provide additional information. And I think AMR should be at that meeting and should be able to provide more clarification in terms of the posting and all of that.
Right, yeah, the more data you can provide to us, the better we can look at it and pinpoint where the issues are at, so we can make the correction.
We'll coordinate a meeting.
Roger has his hand up.
And Teresa?
Yes.
Teresa, I would not mind being at that meeting either.
Thank you, Harry.
Chief Reinhardt has his hand up.
Just for clarification, I wanted to see with Chief Boyd if this was the same incident I had while I had South County coverage in King City. Was this the multi-vehicle accident on the 101?
Chief Boyd, you're on mute.
Sorry. That was one of the factors that contributed to the incident.
Great. I actually submitted, just for your information, Chief, UO regarding that very call, as I was the South covering BC at the time of the incident. There's a multitude of factors that probably we could all sit down and discuss on that, you know, including, you know, reporting and declaration of an MCI at the time for that incident, which would have gotten more attention from the get-go. It could be a bigger system problem, but it could also, like Teresa was saying, if we all are able to meet, maybe hash out, was it a training problem or a reporting problem with the initial arriving units, and not to throw anybody under the bus, CAL FIRE was only called 22 minutes into the incident, when we probably should have been alerted way earlier on in the incident. That particular incident with 8 patients and a declared MCI should have been done at that time. So I think that particular call had a multi-layer effect, but yes, the ambulance response was probably part of that, but also reporting and how that all played out in the grander scheme of the system was a part of it as well.
Why don't we, so we don't steal too much more of the overall time, why don't I try to get together a little meeting for the South County Chiefs Fire Services groups, and we can kind of talk about it. So when
absolutely
together, when EMS does their investigation, and we can, you know, talk about South County issues, and so we don't hijack too much more of this meeting.
Absolutely, and feel free to reach out to us, you know, with Jason Lukenbach or George Nunez or myself. We would all love to be involved in that, and how we can better serve the South County, as we play a big role in that too.
Perfect, thank you. Sorry to hijack.
Okay, thank you everyone for that discussion. Yeah, we'll definitely move on, and sorry about the time delay here on this. Let's move over to fire-based provider response time report by Roxanne.
Sorry. Good morning, everyone. I'm just making sure I am not muted. So today I'm going to be presenting the other provider reports that we've seen in the past. Nothing's changed with the methodology, so I'm just going to go right into the updates. We're starting off with Monterey Regional 90th percentile response times. And from January through October of 2021, we're looking at about 872 calls, but this chart is dating all the way back to August of 2019, and that's just to give you an idea of the trends that's been happening pre and post-COVID. And we can see that there are some notable variations from month to month, but however, there are no statistical significance in the difference in both call volume and 90th percentile response time. In August of 2021, there were 106 medically related responses, higher than both 2019 and 2020 calls in August. And however, September responses decreased to 71 calls, while September 2019 and 2020 September saw higher calls. At this time, it's difficult to attribute these calls to a seasonal occurrence just because we have to take into consideration 2020 had lower call volumes all across throughout all the responders in the county. But over the years, this may be something to continue to look at for the seasonal trends in 90th percentile responses and call volume. The 90th percentile response times remain around under 15 minutes, and the average calls are about 90 per month. When looking at responses just within the fire response area, again, remaining around 14 minutes. The average calls within Monterey County Regional's response time is 57. When looking at the 90th percentile response times within the jurisdiction, the call volume and response times do remain relatively stable, although there was a notable uptick to 16 minutes for 58 calls in October. There is no statistical change at this time for 2020 responses, but since 2019, there was an increase in response time by about 1 minute, and it is that 1 minute is has a p-value of a little greater than 0.05, so it's significantly changed. When looking at response times outside of their area, there is a statistical significance in changes. This is since 2019, this is likely through those variations that we see in like December, March, December again. So those ups and downs, those peaks and valleys that we noticed since 2019 August. The call volumes from August to October, from August 2019 to October of 2021 remain relatively stable, but the 90th percentiles have decreased since the August of 2019. So in October of 2019, the response time was 24 minutes, and now we're looking at 14 minutes response time in October of 2021 for about the same number of calls. Now we're going to switch over to Carmel Fire Ambulance, overall 90th percentile response times. From January through October, there are about 974 calls. There have been no significant changes in the 90th percentile overall response times in the last quarter as compared to the prior months noted on the screen, all the way to 2019. Response times do remain around 10 minutes overall, and call volumes are also relatively stable. Response times, switch my charts a little bit. So response times within Carmel Fire's response area also remain relatively stable. There are great variations between month to month. I would like to say that, you have to interpret this slide with caution again, because the call numbers are well under the 100 mark. There has been a bit of an uptick in the 90th percentile in the last quarter. However, statistical trends show some significant changes in 90% percentile response time since 2019. But in 2021, from January to October, there are no statistical changes. When looking at calls outside of Carmel Fire's response area, the response time compliance has increased by 2 minutes in the last quarter, but call volumes did drop between 53 to 57 calls. We can see that in 2019, August to October, call volumes were also under the 60 mark, and the same for the same quarter in 2020. The calls are expected when compared to the same quarter in the prior 2 years, or as expected. Statistically, since 2019, there have been no significant changes in response times, and 90th percentile response times. Cannot say that word. And in calls, we just see the 2-minute increase since 2019, this time of the year. And the last chart is the Carmel Fire responses within Carmel by the Sea. In the last meeting, when we met, I did not put this chart in there, and that was my mistake. But after it was pointed out in the meeting, we reviewed all the data, went back in, and I realized I had dropped this out from the last meeting, so I put this back in. This is the same report that was reviewed by Chief Tomasi. Hopefully that's the name of Carmel, I'm sorry. Doing that with my memory, but yes. Way back before we started presenting this data, so I just put this back in, didn't change any of the methodology. It does include only Carmel by the Sea. All of the zip codes, we're taking it just by the city. And we can see that the response times within Carmel by the Sea is about 4 minutes. And there also have been no changes really with the number of calls in this area. And that is it for my presentation. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Roxanne. Any questions for Roxanne on the fire response times that she presented? All right. Seeing none. Thank you, Roxanne, for that report. And we have a vote items. Go ahead. Thanks. Okay, thank you, Roxanne. We'll move over to old business, and we have none. We'll jump over to new business, EMS committee membership overlap and meeting consolidation. Chief Clement.
I have a different.
Oh,
the other ones here because it's not lining up.
all right. So if I'll do a little introduction. Chief Clement had brought up at, I think, the last meeting, or at least within communication to the EMS agency, that there's a concern about the 3 primary committees, MAC, Ops, and Emcc, having membership overlap, and that there might be some benefit to consolidation of the meetings, or maybe less often. So that's the lead in. And if you would like to add anything, since you brought it up to us, otherwise, we can.
No, that's essentially it. When I asked to have this looked at, EMS agency staff was kind enough to provide me with voluminous information in the form of spreadsheets in terms of what meetings and the attendees and requirements of the meetings. And we're able to point out that perhaps there might be one area where we could notice some efficiencies that I'll let them talk about, because again, they were the ones with the data that could help out. And my only goal with this was just, again, in doing some quick math here on the screen and in the room, these meetings are expensive to have, and when we can be more efficient with our time, respective of everybody's commitments and their staffing right now, and into the future, that wherever we can reduce our meeting attendance, we're going to be better for it. So that was my only motivation for the ask, and so thank you to Teresa and staff for providing the information. And from there, if you want to take it from there in terms of what you found, that'd be great.
So the report that we provided to Chief Clement, we looked at the membership and the EMCC, MAC, and Ops. And in terms of overlap, we didn't find a lot of overlap. There were a couple of members who serve on two committees. I'm sorry, there were three, maybe four members that serve on two of the committees. Only one member actually serves on all three, and that's Chief Nieto. And unfortunately, we don't control who the agencies nominate for each of the committees. So unfortunately for Chief Nieto, and I think traditionally the representative from law enforcement is always assigned to all three committees. For the clinical programs, we did see more overlap in the membership. There's no necessarily, there's no room for improvement there because each of those are specialty committees. Trauma deals with only trauma, STEMI with just STEMI, stroke with just stroke. Those committees do roll up to the CQI tag. And those are required committees that we have in the regs. So the one, we also looked at meetings and we looked at if there was repetition of topics from one committee to the other. And other than the agency updates, the committee membership that is specific to each committee, there really isn't a lot of overlap in terms of the committee membership. I'm sorry, the topics. The ones that you see highlighted are the ones that we identified as that agenda item being on more than one committee. But like I said, in the committee membership, it is specific to that committee. The EMS annual report is one of the items that you will see at the different committees. But I don't see, I'm not sure that there's actually that much of an overlap, not in the membership and not when it comes to the topics that are addressed at each of the committees. We do have the ops committee that does, there are times that that committee doesn't meet. But other than that, you know, this is information that we were providing to Chief Clement when we met. So those were our findings.
So with that, I don't have a particular motion at this point. I thank staff for providing the information based on some requests from the chiefs. And again, it was more about really just trying to be more efficient with staff's time. So
yeah,
I appreciate that. I don't have a particular motion to alter anything at this time.
And we're very mindful of everybody's time.
Sure.
I think that always juggling people's calendars is difficult for one. For these committees that are subject to the Brown Act and we have to have a quorum. We were in the practice of making, getting an email out saying, confirm if you're going to be at the meeting so that we would know ahead of time if we were going to have a quorum. The fact that we have done a better job at recruiting alternate members, now there's always enough members to have a quorum. So we have fewer. I mean, I cannot remember right now the last time that we had to cancel a meeting due to a lack of quorum. And then we have to do it on the spot. So that, I think that we've improved in that area. And like I said, the membership, unfortunately, we don't control who the agencies nominate for those committees.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Conley.
Just a quick question, Teresa. Can we go back to the
Agenda topics?
yeah, that one. So kind of looking at what topics each committee covers. It looks like ops tends to cover the same things as either EMCC or MAC. With maybe one or two exceptions. And I'm wondering if that might be an opportunity to reduce meetings. Any thoughts on that or?
Yeah, I think that ops is the one that could be an opportunity to improve, either meet less frequently or even change that committee from a regularly scheduled committee meeting every other month to an ad hoc, because the items that go for discussion at ops, it focuses on operations, then they get reported to EMCC, because both MAC and ops, they're subcommittees of that EMCC.
Sure.
So that would be a topic for discussion. As you can see this year, EMCC ops didn't meet in July and in September because there were not enough agenda items for discussion. So
perhaps, that's your suggestion, maybe we look at an ad hoc with at least, maybe we can get one off the plate, or at least one that's, we can
that would be an
call as
opportunity.
needed, and I think that's something for
Um,
discussion, and really this is more for also discussion for people on Zoom, if there's anybody else out there that wants to chime in on this.
Yeah, I think if you're going to consolidate a meeting, it should definitely be one of the ones I'm on. Just kidding.
Okay, any other questions for Chief Clemic or for EMS agency staff? All right, thank you. We'll move over to Steve. I don't know if this is for you or
Yes.
For the EMS committee meeting calendar for 2022.
Nice dovetailed into the calendar from the last discussion. Very simply, we've included the calendar in your packet. We continue to meet on the odd numbered months, second Wednesday, 10:30. And as long as COVID's going on, we intend to have Zoom, but we'll have another special meeting in 30 days to continue that process.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Steve? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Steve. We'll move over to, we did C already, so we'll move over to D for the fiscal year 2021-22 CSA Singapore Fund disbursement.
Yeah, and I'll take that one.
Okay.
So in your packet, we have the fiscal year 21-22 CSA 74 disbursement chart that shows what each agency is getting. And we'll have it up here on the screen in a moment. But it uses the same formula that's been in place for years. And ultimately, we've asked the committee to endorse this disbursement. Not really asking for a change in the agreed upon formula, but that this is the results of the formula, and that we would like to have this committee and endorse this disbursement. And we would need a motion, of course.
One thing, the amounts don't fluctuate much from year to year. There are minor fluctuations, but they're very close each year.
So appropriate to open it for discussion, Steve?
Sure, discussion.
Open it for discussion.
Hey, a question for Teresa.
Yes.
Teresa, it shows, this might be a nitpicking, but shows Spreckles 2,500. If I'm not mistaken, Spreckles is operated now by Monterey Regional. Should that be removed and put under Monterey Regional?
The check is issued to Monterey Regional. This is just how the spreadsheet was set up. But yeah, when the check is issued, it's always issued to Monterey Regional.
Okay. I move approval as written.
All right. A motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Having left my abacus in the car, I'll trust that the spreadsheet's correct and give you a second.
Okay. Do we second motion? Yeah. Chief Clemic is seconded.
All right.
We have it back on abacus if you'd like to use it.
Oh, really? Yeah.
All right,
Great.
so Tino Ariano.
Aye.
Carla Spencer. Not hearing Carla. Sam Clemic.
Aye.
Jim Landborg.
Aye.
Harry Robbins.
Aye.
Paul Wood.
Aye.
Dr. Greenson.
Aye, but I'm curious, where'd the formulas come from for that?
It is established in the MOU that talks about the participation in the CSA 74.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Keith Boyd.
Aye.
Back to Carla Spencer. Is Carla still logged
I
in?
don't see her.
Okay. Joe Cafaro, are you still there?
She's still here.
I'm here, just needed to get myself mute. Yes, aye.
Thank you. That's the committee members and it first.
All right. So motion approved. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We'll move on just for the sake of time here for item 8, announcements and good of the order. Any of the committee members may make an announcement or comments. Do we have anyone in the committee who would like to address us on any announcements for the order?
Future agenda item.
Future agenda items?
Yes. This is an ask. Perhaps county council can come back with her opinion or at least some direction through the EMS agency on what the county is going to do with regards to AB 389. That was signed by the governor on October 4th, essentially moving us closer toward an RFP or closer toward a contract extension. That legislation has an effect on all of that. And I would be interested, and the fire chiefs would be interested on where the county is and what board actions are pending related to that legislation.
Thank you, Chief Conick. Chief, you have questions on that or?
No, I think I have something and, I confirm, as we move along, that we're meeting what your request is. But yeah, the request is, as I understand it, a presentation from county as to how we're addressing AB 389.
Correct. Thank you.
All right.
I have a question. Should the vaccine issue regarding pre-hospital care personnel and or testing be added to the agenda item for this meeting?
Yeah, I don't think it was not added to this agenda, but we can put it in for future agenda.
The agendas with the same date, but it actually comes out.
Thank you.
We talked about that at the MAC meeting, and one of the challenges is this committee doesn't have the authority to usurp the public health officer. So, whether it should be on this agenda versus something going from an entity to the public health officer to give us direction. That was one of the things that came up on the last meeting. I just would hate to waste time talking about something that without the public health officer telling us, this committee being a function of the health department really can't over usurp what the public health officer's direction is for testing and or vaccination.
But this is also the venue for public input regarding, right? So I think it should be added to this agenda because I think it's a public safety issue.
Right. And again, this committee serves as an advisory to the Board of Supervisors, and definitely could agendize it and put it in our recommendation for any vaccine related issues.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that.
All right. Any other announcements or good of the order? Okay. All right. Well, our next meeting is scheduled for January 12th at 10 a.m. And we will be sending out information. I think we'll be continuing the Zoom and room location information as well.
For the special meeting.
For the special meeting as well.
December, okay.
December, yeah. Oh, that's right. December for our special meeting to continue the Zoom meetings. All right. So we'll move over to adjournment. Do we need a motion to adjourn? No?
Usually just.
Okay.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Grinson. Thank you, everyone, for attending.